Hello, welcome to another Day 1 to 30 video. This time, I'll be growing a plant in hydroponics, more specifically, deep water culture. In this episode, I'll be showcasing a training method that I've glossed over in a past video. I won't be topping or applying Wilshire's training to the main. Instead, I'll be applying strict defoliation to the main node to achieve an efficient, even canopy. A big thank you to Spiderfarmer for sponsoring this video and making it possible. Use code BASEMENT for an 8% discount on upgrades for your garden. My usual method to germinate seeds is to simply drop them into water, then wait around 3 days. At this point, they're ready to be planted directly into their final pot. It's not required, but I like to use peat pucks to transition the plant into their final pot. It gives me a couple more days to prepare the pot. When growing in deep water culture hydroponics, it's a useful step to take to secure your seedling into a position in a net pot filled with clay pebbles. Once the seedling has been positioned, I put the puck back into the solo cup and cover it with a plastic bag to help keep the moisture in so that the puck doesn't dry out too quickly. The seedling won't need light for a couple days, so I place it back into the cupboard. After a couple days, when the seed starts to rise up from the puck, I move her into the bottom of the tent so that when the shell pops off, she'll immediately have access to the light. I left mine for an additional day, and you can see that the seedling has become a little bit stretched while it's looking for more light intensity. For my DWC seedlings, I like to have the water level touching the bottom of the net pot. Once the roots are established, I'll leave a small air gap between the water and the net pot. I'll be using a 5-gallon bucket filled with about 4 gallons or 16 liters of water. I'll add about 90 mils or 6 tablespoons of Clonex seedling and clone nutrient into the reservoir. The water I use is from a city supply. I let the water sit for a couple days with an air stone to help bubble out the chlorine. After dechlorination, my water's pH is around 7 with a ppm of around 66. I use phosphoric acid to lower the pH of the nutrient solution to be between 5.5 and 5.8 for seedlings. .8 is good enough. Good and reliable pH meters are expensive. One of the best alternatives for a consistent experience is to use liquid indicator drops or strips. Here you can see the comparison of 6.6 pH versus 5.8 pH. After adding in the air stone into the water, the reservoir is ready for the plant. Always make sure to rinse out your clay pebbles to avoid making a mess in your reservoir bucket. I don't think it really matters how deep you plant your seedling. I like to gauge the length of my seedling and position her so that the seedling leaves are just above the top edge of the net pot. I also don't think it's required to remove the thin fabric around the peat puck, but I like to do it. I would like to save this taproot coming out the bottom, but it's also not a big deal if it does break off. If you'd like to receive direct advice, or just share your garden with other like-minded gardeners, consider joining my community Discord server. You'll find an invite link in the description. And finally, since the peat puck has started to dry out a little bit, I take some of the nutrient water from the reservoir and top water the plant. Seven days later, and the plant is now on day 9. I haven't done anything during the last 7 days, and she looks great. The reservoir is still at a decent level, and root development has started to make it into the water. The plant is already looking to be of the size where I'd consider training her. Usually my plants are this size around day 12, so I'm very pleased by this. I have a specific training method in mind, which is a little bit different, so I'll wait a few more days. 4 days later, and she's now on day 13. She's looking huge for this age of plant. I'll usually begin some type of training between days 12 and 16 to establish the structure that the plant will bloom from. There's many ways to achieve an efficient canopy for indoor gardening. Instead of topping or low stress training, today I'm going to do a strict defoliation on the main node. I start by removing leaves that are blocking my lower nodes to allow them equal light priority. Then I go a step further by defoliating the main node as far as possible. I've left the lowest, largest leaves alone because they're receiving good light and they're not acting like umbrellas and blocking any nodes. I did decide to remove these goofy nodes off the bottom. They're very small and disfigured, and I figured they wouldn't reach the top canopy. My outdoor thistle plant is deep into bloom now. She's way too big, and I figured that I'd do a little bit of a partial harvest on her. Harvesting part of your plant can be very beneficial if you're happy with the maturity of these branches, and you'd like to allow the rest of the plant time to fully finish maturing. I've read that thistles don't like to be cloned, and do better from seed or from a root sample. I hope my yard isn't going to consist of more thistle than grass. A big thank you to Spiderfarmer for sponsoring this video. If you're looking to upgrade your garden, look no further. Spiderfarmer offers a complete selection of indoor gardening components to bring your garden from seed to harvest. The light I'm using is an SF4000 set to 80% power. I'm giving direct airflow to the driver and the board to help keep the light running as cool as possible. My light is hung about 100 centimeters or 40 inches from the soil for seedlings, which provides around 600 ppfd. Blooming plants usually stretch up to around 50 centimeters or 20 inches away, where they receive about 1000 ppfd of light intensity. If you're looking to bring your garden to the next level, consider Spiderfarmer. Use code BASEMENT for an 8% discount from the official Spiderfarmer websites, links in the description, or use code BASEMENT3 for 3% off their products on Amazon. It's been 4 days after the initial training. She's now on day 17. I can spot a few leaves that are looking at me funny. I'm gonna have to deal with those. The central canopy is being covered and crowded by several leaves. I'll remove them to allow equal light priority among all of the growth nodes. The main node has been overtaken by the other branches, which is a good thing. The usual problem from not applying low stress training or topping the main node is that the main node outruns the other branches. The root mass is really starting to bulk up now. It won't be long now until it's all interwoven into a ball. It's been 3 days since the selective leaf removal from the central canopy. She's on day 20 now and is ready for some low stress training to help even out the canopy. The main node has fallen behind the pace of the outer branches, and the outer branches have accumulated more mass and trunk thickness. So far, we've done a great job to balance out the plant's canopy without the use of low stress training or topping. Today, I'll be tying down the outer branches so that they're at the same elevation as the main branch. To apply low stress training, I'll be using garden wire, which has been secured to the base of my net pot with hot glue. Notice how I've tied them down to be almost flat, and they're now a bit lower than the bulk of the canopy. This is intentional because when the branches try to stand back up, they'll then be at an even elevation with the other branches. I then remove the 2 leaves attached to the main node, and I also remove other leaves that are blocking bud sites. I also do a bit of lollipopping, which is removing growth from the bottom of the plant, which is a bit too far below the canopy. These older, larger leaves are now being blocked by the canopy and aren't receiving full light. I may have accidentally removed a node when I ripped off a leaf. Oops. Just pretend you didn't see that. She might look a little sad now, but don't worry. Trust the process. This plant has made it to day 20 without any adjustment or topping up of her reservoir. She's been surviving solely on the seedling and clone nutrient. The ppm of the solution is a bit low, so after topping it up, it's even lower. Today, I'll be adding about 10 mils of Florinova Grow into the reservoir. Around 800 ppm sounds about right for this stage of growth. To bring the pH down to about 5.8, I'll be adding about 15 to 20 drops of phosphoric acid. Eh, 5.9, good enough. With my new AC in my home, my temperature has been closer to 20 to 24 degrees Celsius, even in the extreme heat we've been having in Canada. My humidity is usually around 50%. It's been 4 days since the defoliation and reservoir adjustment. She's on day 24 and I think she's ready for a little bit more selective deleafing. The convenient part about forming an even canopy is that the problems on one side of the plant are usually mirrored on the opposite side. As I scrounge through the canopy, I'm looking to remove leaves that are clustered too close together and can block my bud sites. I want to keep as many leaves as possible, so I'm only removing the leaves that are looking at me funny. Four days later, which is actually 8 days after the last reservoir adjustment, she's now on day 28. She's blooming! Today, I'll be swapping out her reservoir for a fresh one. I'll start by adding 20 ml of CalMag into 16 liters of water. Then, I'll add 20 ml of Florinova Bloom. I'll also be adding 20 ml of liquid Cool Bloom. The pH of the solution naturally came to 6.1. That's close enough for me. There wasn't much left in the reservoir. I caught it just in time. I'm sure she was finding 5.5 pH to be a little low. This node is a little bit too low in the canopy for my liking, but I'm going to keep her just to see how she does. 5 days later, on her 33rd day, she's getting way too big. I think she's around the end of week 2 of bloom now. The bud sites aren't looking the most happy, which is likely because the reservoir has run low again. I like to treat my hydroponic plants kind of like soil sometimes. Similar to the last reservoir adjustment, I'm going to be adding 20 ml of CalMag, 20 ml of Flora Nova Bloom, and 20 ml of Cool Bloom. I won't be lazy this time, and I'll add a few drops of pH down to lower the pH to be closer to 5.8 to 6. Some of the leaves aren't looking perfect. This is probably because hydroponic plants would prefer to have their water topped up and have their nutrients and pH adjusted daily. Four days later, on this girl's 37th day, she's making my large amnesia haze plant look small. She needs to chill out. She's too damn big. What am I gonna do with all this plant? She's drinking way too much. I need to stop feeding her so much. Today, I'll mix up a fresh batch of nutrients for her, using the same ratio as before. 20 ml of CalMag, 20 ml of Flora Nova Bloom, and 20 ml of Cool Bloom, although I may have messed up the order. Normally you're supposed to add the CalMag first, but this time I spaced out and added the Flora Nova Bloom first. It'll probably be fine. The pH of the solution was a little bit high, so I added some phosphoric acid to lower that down to around 6. I didn't feel like lifting up the plant today, so I just siphoned over the nutrients into the old reservoir. I hope you enjoyed this episode of How I Grow. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to stay tuned for the next episode. Another big thank you to Spiderfarmer for sponsoring this video. Use code BASEMENT for a discount.